Hello and welcome back to Luxury and Crazy Facts. Today we'll be talking about the 10 most expensive Rolex watches ever sold. They remain the most expensive even now in 2021. Rolex holds a special place in the world of high-end mechanical watches. It's the most valuable luxury watch brand in the world. Rolex is also one of the most expensive watch brands. What comes to your mind when you hear that someone bought a Rolex wrist watch for some millions of dollars? What makes Rolex so special? The quality of its designs, the rarity of its materials, and, most importantly, the brand's impeccable production process that guarantees precise and accurate performances. Let's get down to business. At number 10 of the most expensive Rolex watches is the Rolex Platinum Diamond Pearlmaster 18956, sold for $277,850, March 2011. The Rolex Platinum Diamond Pearlmaster is the 8th most expensive Rolex ever sold. Unlike its modern sibling, the Rolex Platinum Diamond Pearlmaster is based on the Day-Date collection instead of the Datejust. The limited edition watch is made from meteorite diamond and counts 42 diamonds on its custom bezel. The 39mm dial watch was first released in 2011 for $277,850. At number 9 on the most expensive Rolex watches 2021 is James Bond's 1972 Rolex Submariner, sold for $365,000, November 2015. Yet another Submariner in our list of the most expensive Rolex watches ever sold. This one is the actual watch worn by Sir Roger Moore while playing James Bond in Live and Let Die in 1973. The watch was sold for $365,000 at a Phillips auction in Geneva in 2015. The watch was modified for the movie. In particular, the bezel was changed to look like a circular saw. It is used by James Bond in the movie to cut a rope. The watch's magnetic field is also used to unzip Miss Caruso's dress, played by Madeline Smith. The James Bond Submariner was so heavily modified for the movie that it doesn't tell time anymore. The back of the watch, however, was signed by Roger Moore. At number 8 of the world's most expensive Rolex watches 2021 is Rolex GMT Master 2 Ice, $485,350, 2021. This Rolex GMT Master Ice is the watch that football superstar Cristiano Ronaldo wore during the 14th Dubai International Sports Conference. It is the most expensive new Rolex you can buy. It retails for $485,350, but its price might vary depending on the market price for diamonds at the time of your purchase. The Rolex GMT Master 2 Ice is entirely covered in precious stones and made from white gold. The dial has an interesting wave pattern of diamonds and gold. The rest of the case hasn't been compromised by the in-house customization. You get all the same features and performance than the modern Rolex GMT 2 delivers, including a waterproof case up to 100 meters, 330 feet, and 50 hours of power reserve. The dial featured the classic GMT second hand to set a second time zone. At number 7 of the world's most expensive Rolex watches is Jack Nicklaus Rolex Day-Date, sold for $1.22 million, December 2019. Rolex gave this yellow gold Day-Date to legendary golfer Jack Nicklaus in 1967. He pretty much wore it every day since then. Jack Nicklaus, known as the Golden Bear, wore this Rolex when he won 12 of his record 18 professional major championship titles. The watch was also often photographed when Nicklaus hoisted the championship trophy following his victories. The yellow gold day date on a president bracelet is Rolex's most prestigious model and one of the world's most famous watches. This is the very first watch I ever owned, and the only watch I wore for every professional tournament I've won throughout my career, Jack Nicklaus said. It has accompanied me at US Opens, Masters tournaments, PGA championships, Open championships and countless other events for over 5 decades, and has served me well at every step along the way. The watch sold for $1.22 million at a Phillips auction in December 2019. All of the auction proceeds went to Nicklaus charitable foundation that cares for children in need around the world. At number 6 of the world's most expensive Rolex watches 2021 is Eric Clapton's Rolex Oyster Albino Cosmograph Daytona, sold for $1.4 million, May 2015. Eric Clapton's Rolex Oyster Albino Cosmograph Daytona is the 5th most expensive Rolex watch ever sold. Eric Clapton's Daytona, dubbed the Rolex Oyster Albino Cosmograph, sold not once but twice for substantial amounts during public auctions. The first time was in 2003 in New York, where the watch was bought for $505,000 during an auction organized by Sotheby's. 12 years later, in May 2015, Eric Clapton's Daytona was sold once more, but this time for $1.4 million at a Phillips auction in Geneva, nearly 3 times its previous price. Besides its famous first owner, the Rolex Oyster Albino Daytona is special because only 4 pieces are available with the dial in a single color. The Daytona dial usually has 2 colors to make the chronograph totalizers contrast with the rest of the dial. At number 5 of the world's most expensive Rolex 2021 is Marlon Brando's Apocalypse Now Rolex GMT Master, sold for $1.952 million, December 2019. Marlon Brando's Apocalypse Now Rolex GMT Master sold for $1.952 million in December 2019. This Rolex GMT Ref. 1675 worn by Marlon Brando in the movie Apocalypse Now was sold for $1.952 million at a Phillips auction in December 2019. The auction, appropriately named the Phillips Game Changers event, saw the Rolex GMT Master manufactured in 1972 sell well above the expected price. Marlon Brando, an Academy Award winner, wore the watch on a black strap with its bezel missing. Francis Ford Coppola had indeed asked Brando to remove the bezel as it would stand out too much in the movie. The watch is also unique because Brando carved his name on its back. It sold after 15 minutes of intense bidding. At number 4 of the world's most expensive Rolex 2021 is Anti-Magnetic Reference 4113 from 1942, sold for $2.5 million, May 2016. The Rolex Anti-Magnetic Reference 4113 from 1942 is the 4th most expensive Rolex watch in the world. The 1942 Anti-Magnetic Reference 4113 is the oldest Rolex on our list after selling for nearly $2.5 million during a Phillips auction in Geneva in 2016. It comes in an extraordinarily large case considering its production year. At 44 mm, it is in fact the largest case ever built by Rolex. Only 12 examples of the reference 4113 are known to still exist today. The watch was initially produced as a gift to celebrate the victory of a racing team. Interestingly, this particular model had been sold just 3 years before, in 2013, for $1.16 million at Christie's. It's another example of the steep price increase for rare Rolex models. At number 3 of the world's most expensive Rolex 2021 is the Rolex Bao Dai, sold for $5.1 million, May 2017. The Rolex Bao Dai is unquestionably one of the most instantly recognizable models among watch fans. Based on the Rolex reference 6062, this watch was initially sold to the last emperor of the Nguyen dynasty in Vietnam in 1954. At the time, this was the most expensive model in Rolex's collection. The gold case and black dial were the rarest configurations available. Only 3 were ever produced, according to Hodinkee, and this piece is the only one of the 3 to have diamond markers on the even hours. The Rolex Bao Dai was sold for over $5.1 million at auction at Philips in Geneva in 2017. The watch had already been sold through auction before. The Nguyen family first sold it for $235,000 in 2002, which was the highest price ever paid for a Rolex at that time. At number 2 of the world's most expensive Rolex 2021 is the 1971 Rolex Daytona Reference 626 Unicorn, sold for $5.9 million, May 2018. The 1971 Rolex Daytona Reference 626 Unicorn is the second most expensive Rolex. Uniqueness and rarity explain the price of this 1970 Rolex Daytona that was sold for $5.9 million in 2018. The reference 6265 is the only model available in 18-karat white gold. Hence its unicorn nickname. The vast majority of Rolex Daytona produced at the time were in stainless steel. Beside its precious material, the story of the watch is itself interesting. Few people had ever heard of it until it was announced in 2013 that famous Rolex collector John Goldberger had acquired the watch Oro Montanari of his real name. And at the number 1 of the world's most expensive Rolex 2021 is Paul Newman's Rolex Daytona, sold for $17.8 million, October 2017. Paul Newman's Rolex Daytona is the most expensive Rolex watch ever sold. Paul Newman's Rolex Daytona is not only the most expensive Rolex ever sold, but it's also the most expensive watch ever sold in the world. It easily beat the previous record set by a 1943 Patek Philippe perpetual calendar chronograph that sold for $11 million in 2016. The opening bid for Paul Newman's Daytona started at $1 million but was immediately raised to $10 million by the first bidder, stunning the entire auction room at Philips. Only 2 bidders then fought for the watch to finally settle its price at $17.8 million. While relatively well preserved, this Rolex Daytona isn't particularly rare nor made from precious materials. But its unique story is what watch collectors are most interested in. It was given to Paul Newman by his wife, Joanne Woodward, while he was playing in the movie Winning.